Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance and DataFax. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, the CEO of City Current, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and powered by DataFax and Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We get to talk about culture, leadership, employability, all sorts of amazingness with Kyle Allen. He is the managing partner for Vaco, Nashville. Kyle, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be here. Sure.
So let's start out. The fun of the ChangeMakers podcast is we get to know, obviously, the business side. We'll talk all about that. You've got a ton of tips, but on your end, getting to know you a little bit. So let's start out kind of homegrown. So talk about just growing up, where you grew up, and give us a little bit of your childhood.
Yeah, 10 years in Indiana. So Terre Haute, home of Larry Bird, Indiana State, and then moved here to Murfreesboro. It's kind of where I finished grade school, middle school, high school. Went to Oakland High, and then moved to college at University of Tennessee, some of all, and then been working professionally in Nashville since 2003.
Give us maybe one or two things growing up. Let's start with your family. Brothers, sisters,
Got
siblings?
a brother, younger brother.
Okay.
He's in Chattanooga, 4 kids. He's an engineer.
Nice.
So, yep.
What's one thing that you take away as a favorite tradition with your family? Fun experience, family tradition. Give me something that puts a smile on your face.
Man. Well, I would say one great one is probably not with them, but something they did with my brother and I. So my mom I went to camp called Camp Siegel. It's a month-long YMCA camp out in North Carolina on the coast. And they sent us there every year for a month, which seems crazy. My wife cringes at that, and man, I loved it. I think I was there 6 or 7 years, and like literally didn't want to come home. And something my mom experienced as well as a child.
Yeah.
So like memories as a kid, that's just a fantastic time. With the family, we did family trips to Florida and different things like that, and I did a lot of tennis tournaments traveling. But as a kid, it makes me think, and I do a family camp with my kids too. Like we just got back a couple weeks ago from that through Pine Cove. But it is, it's a fantastic time.
So what were some of your favorite activities at camp? Was it more the sailing, swimming, and that
everything?
Kind of
so you kind of do land, land and sea. The young kids do sea in the morning because the sea is not as crazy, and the older kids do it in the afternoon and vice versa. But it's like sailing, motorboating. There's swimming. There's a big lake. Basketball, tennis, art. There's an 18-hole golf course. BB guns.
Kind of everything.
Any sport they would try to do. The big catamarans, some small sunfish you learn to sail on. Skiing. It was everything. And so then I was a counselor in college there for a couple years too. But it's a pretty good time.
Do you still keep in touch with any of the relationships?
There's a few. It's a lot easier through Instagram, obviously, and Facebook. So there's even some of the counselors I had and some of the people I went to camp with. Yeah, for sure. You kind of stay in touch, and you feel like you know them a lot better than you do through the postings and the kids, and it's kind of that awkwardness you follow locally, and you're like, oh yeah, I shouldn't tell you how much I know about you, but I do know a lot about you through social media, which is quasi creepy, but
that's the power of social media
for sure.
Keeps us all in touch. Yeah. Talk about tennis on your end, because obviously that's a mutual tie-in, but talk about tennis.
Man, tennis was I didn't start playing till I was 12, and dropped everything to play tennis. I kind of picked it up when I moved to Nashville. And then, man, I was like knee deep in it. I was playing 5-6 days a week, and then by the time I was 16, I was teaching it, and it was my first job, and stringing rackets and feeding balls, I played a ton, and then was doing the tournament, circuit probably when I was 15 to 18, and I really wanted to play at a big boy college, one of the Power 5, and just really I wasn't good enough to do that. So I could have walked on at MTSU to string some rackets, and because I knew the coach really was probably being more nice than anything else. But I think I just was like, man, I just decided not to take it to the next step and do it. But I love the sport. My kids play.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a lifelong
It's a
sport,
great one. So everybody used to tell me that, and I was like, I don't care about that. I just love playing. And I don't play competitively much anymore. There's plenty of adult leagues out there. Memphis is a fantastic tennis town, and play with some folks out there. But my days of grinding out a third set breaker are over. So
I can relate to that. One-handed backhand or two hands?
I picked up a one-hander. I had two-hander younger. I picked up a one-hander playing with my kids.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing in competition though, like I would hit a two, but
Someone on a podcast asked me, they're like, are you more of a Nadal fan or a Federer fan? And I was like, well, I'm actually more of like a Sampras, Agassi, Curry, or those guys. But, so what would you say? Who are your favorites?
Federer for sure. Now, he's my age.
Yeah.
So like when I was kind of, we'll say my prime, he was just entering the scene, right?
Yeah.
And so when he's 18 now, he's beating Sampras, and that's kind of who I've just grown up watching. But like growing up, I loved Sampras and Agassi were my two.
Yep.
You love both of them, right?
Yep.
And they were both so different,
Yep.
personality-wise. And then the run Jimmy Connors made in 92 at the Open. I think it was 91, 92.
Oh, yeah,
that was fun. I
amazing.
remember that. That was so fun to watch. But I got to experience the U.S. Open for the first time with my wife last year. Went to a day and night session, and the night session we happened to go to was the Serena Venus match, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So my wife doesn't play, but she's definitely
loves
the game, loves watching
that,
it
right,
for sure.
yeah.
So how hard I can hit a tennis ball doesn't compare to those guys. I mean, they're absolutely.
Well, it's hilarious now. They've got the videos where some of the guys that weren't tennis players but said, I can return her serve pretty easily, and she's blasting these serves, and they're just completely whiffing on them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, she's amazing. So let's switch over. On your end, talk about because on your end you say recovering CPA is kind of who you are, but give us a little bit of that track record in terms of going into corporate CPA, and then we'll switch it over to Vaco.
Yeah, I think for me, what took me to the accounting route is I just had a lot of my dad's friends and people, just mentors of mine, pushed me that way. Is I wanted to do something in business. And they just said, man, if you can do it, not everybody can, but accounting is kind of the foreign language of business. You're able to speak it or you're not. And I've learned that is, you can kind of pick up marketing tips and you can pick up things in finance, but man, if you don't know, you can't fool accounting, right?
Sure.
And so that I was like, well, that seems the hardest route. And if you know the blood of the companies, the guts of it, and you can read a financial statement, you know kind of how a company's performing, right? And so I did that, and then all of a sudden that just snowballs into internships and full-time jobs. And so I really took it for the knowledge, not necessarily the career. And so I knew pretty early on this is not what I wanted to do long-term. I love people, love relationships, and I just wanted to be in sales. Yeah. And so I would have gone and sold. As an accountant, trying to find a sales job is pretty difficult. People don't look at you as a salesperson. So on
but
paper,
the irony is, though, in technology, I'd put in the same bucket is, if you're good at the numbers and you're good at the technology, but then you can speak the language and you can translate that over, to your point, it can be a foreign language. If you can translate that over to a business executive and make sense of it and relate, then that's where all of a sudden you have a whole new trajectory with your career.
Totally. And that's actually the technology piece and the accounting has come in. They're so blended now. And so I'm telling kids out of school now, it's almost like, man, if you can kind of do a dual accounting and technology track, and then just kind of gravitate towards one or the other and be able to speak both.
Right.
So we've got a couple of consultants just at Vaco that can do that as kind of the middleman to the IT guys and the accountants and interpret what each other needs. Mm-hmm. There's a huge value add now with kind of where the direction's going, just in systems and technology in general.
So what attracted you to Vaco and Vaco Nashville?
So I joined Vaco 7 years ago. I got in the business 15, and so 14 actually, and then. I think for me, I was just looking for a sales job in general when I first got into what we do. But I think the biggest thing was I love people, love culture, and then I realized that I'm selling people, but I'm selling accountants, and I'm still talking technically. I was using my background of what I knew, but not doing the work, right? And so that was pretty attractive. I joined a small boutique firm in 2005, and then this is more technical, but just direct hire. So I found people permanent jobs. And then competed against Vaco for 7 years. And then Kevin Witt, who I knew previously in college and even talked to him about getting into the business, and Vaco was pretty tiny at the time, just didn't have spots, was like, hey, I want you to come over here. Mm-hmm. And so I came over to Vaco in 2012 to work on our consulting division. So it's still accounting and finance, but the contract consulting. And but loved it, loved the culture, loved the people. They're all a lot of UT guys here in Nashville, believe it or not, similar fraternity. Different years, of course, there's a big gap between us all, but but the youngest I think is 26, and then my oldest is 52, and there's probably 12 of us in Nashville, the same fraternity, different times. So, but yeah, so it's I think just seeing that and I think the ability too I got tired of working really hard, and my reward was more work. Is kind of the accounting mindset. And for me, I wanted to work hard and I want to be incentivized for it.
Sure.
Right?
And then to be able to enjoy time with your family and enjoy the life that you've earned in that regard.
Yeah.
So for listeners who don't know Vaco, hopefully everyone knows Vaco, but describe Vaco.
So in a nutshell, we are a consulting recruiting shop that find people jobs, both on a permanent and contract basis in the areas of accounting and finance, technology, anything accounting, administrative. We have an IT consulting group, healthcare IT. We do executive search, and then even further than that, supply chain, managed services. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But our core in general is any kind of accounting and finance, transactional accounting, degree level accounting, and then a vast array of technology services.
We're here right now in a absolutely beautiful, amazing building, but office for Vaco Nashville. So we're in Nashville, but you have offices really around the nation, so to speak. So Vaco's always been one of the fastest growing companies. When you look even here locally, NBJ, Nashville Business Journal, Fast 50, best places to work. So there's a lot going on in terms of the growth. But give a context nationally for the work that Vaco does.
Yeah, so we're 42 offices. A lot of it's domestic. We have a couple international spots, 2 in India, 1 in maybe 2 in Canada now, Montreal, Toronto, a London office.
Good places to go visit.
Yeah, not bad. So, and continue to expand through growth, organic growth, de novos, acquisitions. I mean, all kinds of different ways we're looking at that, and I kind of myself manage just our Nashville location. There's 42 of me across the country or across the world, across the globe now.
Yeah, across the globe.
Yep.
Talk about on your end, because I think what's interesting and fascinating is that you sit on both sides. So you're helping those who are searching for jobs. You're helping them to make sure that they're polished, their resume looks good, they're able to answer all the interview questions and be the right fit. And then on the other side, you're working with the employers to find the right fit. And so you're helping them to make sure that who they're looking for, what they're looking for, not only on the skill side, but the culture and the fit is appropriate. So share a little bit of that dynamic, and then we'll kind of dive into both those sides, because I think that's an interesting world that you sit in, helping both.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because I think everybody that comes to us thinks we'll have a job for them, like we're just a candy store and we're handing out candy, right? We're just handing out jobs, and the clients come to us and say we think we're a candy store for candidates, right? And so the reality is kind of setting expectations with both and letting them know, providing them. The clients just want the bodies, right? Which is fair. And the candidates, I think they just want a job, but there's a lot we can offer in that process. People are coming to us for the first time like, hey, I haven't interviewed in a while. I haven't looked for a job, hadn't put together a resume. So there's some stuff that we do for free that I think is a really good value add for the candidate, even though the reality is we don't find everybody a job. We want to, and maybe they're not a direct skill set if they've got and maybe they're just, and a lot of it's timing. We tell people, there's people that I've met in the business that I haven't placed for 6 years. It took a long time to find something exactly right, and the reality is we would love to be the only option out there, but like your network's going to bring you a lot of jobs, right? Sure. Your friends and who you worked with in the past, like I've got people I've worked with, and I find a spot, I would call them right up, right? And so we're not the only avenue for that as well, but I think on the candidate side is really helping them with the search overall and looking at it in a bigger piece of what we can do. And we're trying to do a better job of communicating that, because I think the bad rap for us is, did Vaco find me a job? If the answer is yes or no, we're going to lose 90% of the time, right? Maybe a little higher than that. And so it's just for getting them to understand what we can do and the value we have, and also helping our internal folks that do this work. Sure. They have all this knowledge that they just take for granted. And so, being able to articulate that knowledge to the clients and the candidates,
right?
And how do we package that in a way that looks value add, right? And so we're in the process of doing that through social media and some things we've done the past year and a half to better do that. But on the client side, I think more for us, it's understanding kind of who they are, right? And so, and then fitting them with candidates that fit that skill set and that cadence and kind of what they're wanting. There's some with fantastic culture and great benefits, and I'd love to tell you everybody we work with is just an A+ client. The reality is they're not, but that's just who they are, right? Sure. And so what they value is different than what somebody else values. And so you got to understand what they want.
Yeah, it's important on both ends when they go through the actual interview process. It's important that both sides are interviewing each other. And so to your point, because some of the companies, if you like more bureaucracy and more process, that's one side, and then there are other companies that it's very entrepreneurial, but you have no structure, and so you have to be able to enjoy kind of the chaotic, creative nature. And so those are two polar opposite experiences and total polar opposite cultures, and you're going to gravitate toward one or the other, or you're going to be really frustrated in one or the other.
No, totally. And I think a lot of people think the creative entrepreneurial do whatever you. That's the thought.
Sure,
is do whatever you want.
Right.
It's really, we'll call it sexy.
Right.
The reality is a lot of people need to know what they're doing every day.
Right.
They need a direction. They need a path, which I don't blame them. That makes a lot of sense, right? And how to be effective. And so, the reality is the majority of jobs we're putting in place, like we're not doing we do some marketing creative roles, but the reality is a lot of them are pretty defined. Accounting, technology, like there's a process of what we're trying to get to this finish line.
Sure.
Here's what you got to do this week and this month and this quarter. So, but I think overall, depending on maybe the growth size of the company, if it's more of a startup mode,
right,
there could be multiple hats they're wearing, and that's not a fit for everybody,
sure.
right? And so that kind of brings the uncertainty on the jobs we place.
Let's talk about maybe one or two of your favorite tips for the job seekers, especially for those who are in transition. Like you said, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of executives who've probably been in a career for a while, and all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, I've got to actually go back in and update my resume and actually go through an interview, and it's been a really long time. What are some of your favorite top tips?
I think keeping up with your accomplishments throughout your time at where you are, because what happens is you go 6 years and I call you up and I got this spot and you're like, hey, can you throw a resume together? You're like, yeah. And the resume turns into more of a job description than it does to be, okay, what have you done for the company? My big thing is made, saved, achieved. Have you made the company money, saved the company money, or what were your achievements? Because not everybody's in a spot to make money or save money or achieve. I'm in a position to make money for the company, right? And so some accountants are in a position to save money, or how they maybe made money through process efficiencies, or anyways. Yeah. So just keeping up with, and it can be in a Word doc of just like, bullet points of like once a quarter looking back and saying, just typing a few notes about what you did.
It's great advice.
For that. And so it makes the resume process a little easier. It doesn't have to be formalized, but just a document you're kind of keeping up
especially
with.
Like you said, to have kind of a time where once a quarter, at the end of the quarter, just go back in and add a few blurbs and you're good to go.
So I think because it's really hard for somebody to put together a polished resume of like, I don't know what all I've done. And that's just, it's really hard to look back 7 years.
Right?
Right? Yeah. So that's a good one. And then two, which is crazy, some people don't say that, but like try to put on, and I'm big on this, is just put in just a line of, man, what are you into hobby-wise? Like if it's golf or wine or brewing. It seems dumb, but it's a conversation starter. Mm-hmm. Like I tell people all the time, like there's a couple of guys that played professional baseball. Put that in there because everybody loves. Some people, maybe not, but you'd be surprised they spend 20 minutes talking about his professional baseball days. Because the reality is, a client is deciding within the first 5 minutes if they're going to hire you. They may not know, but they're going to be. It's going to be a yes or a no. It may be a maybe, but it's for sure a no in 5 minutes. And so the people that get hired not necessarily aren't the most qualified. Your likability factor has to be really, really high. And so anything you can kind of talk to and help your likability factor, and I try to instantly connect with the person that's interviewing you, and especially if they're in your office and you see some things on the wall that's Tennessee, in Tennessee, you're a big Tennessee fan, and try to find a connection with somebody quickly,
right? And
find out what they're into to help. Man, I like Jeremy, right? And so you're like, I just like him. And so I think that people underestimate the likability factor. And it's hard for people to do that, and the reason why it's hard for people to connect personally is because they're so nervous. Mm-hmm. And so they're too worried about what they're saying and what they've done and how to say it instead of just treating it as a conversation. Because I tell people this all the time, and I was actually prepping my 15-year-old for an interview a month ago. He got a job. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're not going to get it. Now, I know some people are like, well, I know, but I need money. I need to do this. And there's different things you can do now, especially with Uber and different things you can do to do some side hustle to get money. But, like, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to die. So, like, treat it as, like, and some people I know don't like meeting new people, but trying to be likable is probably the other big tip I would to have, and try to get to know that person personally, because if they don't like you,
well, they're going to be working with you. So
that's
they have
right.
To, right.
So, like, if you just come off unlikable,
right.
they're not going to hire you.
Well,
it's just
and,
a fact.
and a part of that too is the trust, right? So they have to feel like not only are you likable, but that they're going to trust you, because they're ultimately putting a large amount of money into you in terms of the investment for some sort of productivity, whatever that is. And so they have to feel like they're going to trust and like, because they know they're going to spend a tremendous. You spend more time with the people you work with than in many cases your family.
Yep.
So it's like to your point, they want to like you, but they also too want to feel like they trust you. The other thing, which is really kind of brilliant on the sports side, is like, especially if you played professional sports or any sort of leading a charitable cause, is it automatically, even as simple as you saying played professional baseball. Well, what does that imply? Discipline, hard work, competitive.
Totally.
Right. I mean, in that one little simple description, you've actually painted a picture of 1,000 words.
That's right.
With that
how
one
hard
statement.
it takes to get to that point. No
absolutely.
doubt. And that could be anything from, it could be a college, even a college, it doesn't have to be professional.
Sure.
A college sport or something you started in college, or just, and mentioning it.
And the charity side too, the volunteerism shows you have a heart, you're trustworthy, you're out there doing things that you don't necessarily have to do, but you want to do for all the right reasons. That once again establishes trust.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
trust.
Those very smart tips.
Absolutely.
So for employers, let's switch over and talk about, give us one or two things on that side in terms of what they need to be either looking at for their job description, in their interviews. What's something that when you look at that process, what's a tip that you like to give companies as they go through the hiring process?
So many. I mean, I think the biggest thing, the hiring process, is two things. One, they need to understand candidates have choices, right? And so I think so many clients think they're the only option. Why wouldn't they pick me? Like if they find, they need to be selling their company just as much as they're interviewing that individual. And so I think some people take it as more of an interrogation instead of a mutual discussion of an interview. Right? And so people are getting better at that, especially in the market we're in. Like, it's just so hot right now. And so I think just from the start is selling them and why should they come to work there, right? I think that's probably the biggest one. Two, what was my second one I had in mind?
Let me ask you this while you're thinking about that. What's something that's fairly innovative that you're seeing, either benefits packages, modified work schedules so that people can go out and volunteer? What are some things that you're seeing on that side that are good attractors and keepers of the talent?
Well, any type of remote ability, that's a little easier on the technology side than it is on accounting. But I think just some flexibility of hiring people and holding them and making them accountable to themselves. Like, I don't care if you're in the seat from 8 to 5, right? But here's what I need done. You know your responsibility, and I don't care if you can do it in an hour. Awesome. Not likely, and so instead of checking the box and you have 1.5 hours of PTO left, like, I'm a big proponent. I don't run this company, but just giving them, there's no vacation policy. Like, you come and go. Like, because the studies have been done, the more vacation you give them, the less they take. Which I don't want. I'm not using that as against them, but I'm just like, you put the onus on the employee to manage their time and communicate with individuals when they're out. Like, because you get to the end of the year and I've got 8 days to take. I'm just going to take them, or can I roll them? And I'm like, that's not what it's for, right? And so, and then I think the other thing with companies and advice I would give them is just overall, just how they look at culture. And what are they portraying? And I think a lot of people think, hey, let's just wear jeans on Friday and we're a fun organization. But it really takes time. It takes really, really thought, and takes money to create that. And there's not really you don't have to do a lot of different things. You can do it, and you can do it a lot of your events around some community service involvement, right? But I think so many people are just so worried about getting their job done and look up at 6, I got to go home and I got to run to personal and we're coming back, and it just turns into
become robots.
Right, yeah. Right. So, and I think with the culture is just training. And so people are really grasping to learn. People get out of college and start a job, and that's why I challenge my people too, is like, you've been learning since you were born, right? Learning new things. Like, why do you become 23 and stop learning? Like, we have a book club here at Vaco. Like, I encourage people to read and learn, and that's how you continue to develop, just from whether it's a dad or just leadership. Some of this stuff isn't taught. I mean, there's a reason why they put people in manager spots and they suck. They've had no training. They don't know. And so I'm big on just understanding that piece of the leadership, the training, and just the overall culture of like what you're driving. And that culture comes from the top, right, and what's important. So,
well, that's actually where we're headed next. That's a perfect segue into culture. And I mean, I call you kind of the culture keeper, but you look around this office and you have, a bar area, you have kind of a basketball game, you have video games. It's a cool, swanky, amazing vibe. But to your point, that's only kind of the physical side of this, right?
Yep.
And culture is really the spiritual and the personal side of this. So talk about, and you kind of shared the book club, but talk about some of the things that you think are very different with Vaco, especially Vaco Nashville, that really embody that culture and bring the team together.
Well, it all started with Jerry Bosselman. I mean, he's our CEO, and Brian Waller and Jay Holloman, the founders here at Vaco, and so I've just been, and Kevin Witt, and I'm kind of the next in line here in Nashville to kind of continue it and frankly not mess it up. But I hopped on the train. So, but I think what we've done is really provide a entrepreneurial type environment to let people. We wanted them to come to Vaco with the realistic opportunity to retire here, and we'd say that wholeheartedly. And I think if you're going to stay here that long, you might as well have fun doing it, right? And so I think we really put a lot of autonomy in our producers' hands and people that work here. And it's an open environment. I have office hours here. People can come and talk to me, and they can set up a meeting. And I'm an open book, right? And so dealing with concerns, or they give me ideas, and I'm constantly asking for feedback. And I get it, and unfortunately I don't like it all the time, but I appreciate it, right? And so then I really sit in it. But I think just as an organization, you can have we do a lot of entertaining too with clients, so it's obviously
you do a lot of
use
workshops.
I
mean, there's one going on
we
right
do.
now
So
in the other room.
So that is a training group. So we have a large training class that comes in every 6 weeks or so from all across the country and comes in for a week and trains. So that's one of those classes. But we have the basketball and we have the shuffleboard and all that kind of stuff. And what's funny is people think, well, I don't want to have that. They're not going to work as much. The reality is they don't use it a whole ton. They use it a little bit, and they're usually on a conference call while then playing, right? And so it just gives you a way to get out of your desk and go somewhere. And so we have a lot of huddle areas people can go just kind of have a chit chat, and some private areas that it's just not so compartmentalized and sterile conference rooms. And so there's just some areas to go be like a house, right, and have conversation. And I think we do quarterly outings with our group of just. I think the best way to get to know somebody personally is just have experiences with them, right?
Absolutely.
And so go to a Sounds game or go to a Preds game or whatever that may be. And then we do a lot of charity events together as well. Like last week we did something for the American Heart, and Rob Whitley and kind of spearheaded this. Is we had a carnival from 11 to 1 or 12 to 2. We had a dunk tank, and we had a cornhole tournament, and we had a food truck and different things. And so our thought was then they pay money to do different things and tickets, and we had a basketball contest. And so I think we raised $5,000 by just
That's awesome.
It was 2 hours and a good time, right?
Yeah.
And so different teams we did, and there's a few other things that Liz Shimmer and her marketing team put together. So we found on the community side, if we can get somebody that's passionate about something, we love it, but we want them to go drive it and make it happen. And so we really empower folks to do that. So
share with us on your end, because I know community service, volunteerism for you is extremely important, and that obviously permeates throughout the culture here. But you've got Safe Haven Family Shelter, ACG. You on your end do a lot with youth sports. You've got 3 kids. So, I mean, talk about kind of that community engagement and why that's so important for you personally, but also to set the tone and the culture for the company.
Well, I think I just tell people too, it's just the more you give, the more you get, which is crazy to think. You sit back that, but I've had such an opportunity to do some really cool stuff, and I end up getting more out of it than the person receiving it, which is crazy to think. And so, but for me, I volunteered at our church, and we've been doing that for 15 years, and then Safe Haven, I'm on the board and really involved in the dance. And Safe Haven's got a fantastic mission. I mean, it's one of the core fundamentals that. 4 core competencies that you just take for granted every night. When's the last time that you didn't know where you're sleeping?
Yeah, never.
Or where your next meal.
I was camping in a mountain,
right.
basically.
But where your next meal was coming from.
Yeah.
Or when's the last time you remember you're not being able to read?
Right.
And so that's what Safe Haven does, as far as keeping the families together and putting a house over their head as they go, avoid homelessness. And it's just, so for me, I feel a sense of just a give back. I have to do that because I've never felt that way, right? And that's just awful that somebody would. But and I think too, just professionally, it's really helped me grow to just learn empathy and just. I feel like a leader's one of their best qualities is a leader just to care, right? If a leader cares, they can have a lot of flaws, but man, if they give a shit, it goes a long way. And so that's, for me at least, that's my core thing is like, I do care. I care about them professionally. I care about them. I meet with everybody. I try to meet with everybody once a year. I sit down. I have about 70 or 80 people in my office, and I talk I talk some personal finances and ask them questions and mortgages and debt. And like, you can't live life in debt, right? Sometimes at some point. So and a lot of these kids coming out of college have no idea how to buy a house. They have no idea how to invest money. Mm-hmm. They're scared of a 401k, or they got to keep their cash, or they got to spend it, right? And so so I try to have a personal tie-in as well, trying to help them out and direct them. I'm not getting in the middle of their business, but
No, but I think that is even a standalone to your point that if a leader cares, the employees will go way above and beyond if they feel like they're valued and that the leader genuinely, authentically is concerned about their well-being and cares. And I'm glad you said, because I think, so many employees leave a company not because of the company, but because of their boss. And
that's the number one reason they leave is their boss. For sure. They feel undervalued, underappreciated. Nobody listened to me. Yep. I have ideas and nobody cared. And so that's what I really try here is that you can't talk to me. You have a voice. Everything you want to change, will I be able to do it right then? Does it make sense for an organization? Maybe not, right? But at least I'll hear you out.
Care, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think that is, and that doesn't come naturally.
Not for a lot of guys.
No, right? And so we're reading a book here at Vaco, a lot of the leader, Radical Candor, and kind of just kick-ass way to be a great boss, or a great way to be a kick-ass boss, I think is the kind of slogan. But shares a lot of just Silicon Valley stories, and I think just being intentional, and the biggest quality, my hardest one that I don't do super well, and I'm getting better, is just listening, just shutting up, because I naturally just like, okay, yeah, I can fix it. Right. I'll fix it. I'm a guy.
Yeah, but those are all guy tendencies, especially for sports, because you get so competitive, and that allows you to be successful is because you tune out all that, and then you say, no, I don't care about that other person, I'm going to beat them. Like that mentality is what allows you to be successful in sports, but unfortunately, that can be the detriment when you talk about working with others in a corporate environment where you need the empathy, you need to feel the heartstring pull of it.
So, but I think on the flip side is the caring and empathy piece, but then also a good leader is, at some point you got to make a decision too, and so being able to drive and collaborate and get people to kind of all work together as well is a whole nother topic. But
give me one on your end. You were a finalist Nashville Emerging Leader Award, so you've got all sorts of spotlights on you now in terms of what you're doing to make a difference. But talk about on your end, maybe one or two things that you're really excited for, happy for you personally, but also too for Vaco. So give us kind of one on both sides, a personal and a corporate side of something that you're excited or really happy about.
Corporately, I'd say just kind of where Vaco is, right? We're continuing to hire great young talent. I think that this is the past couple of years I've realized I'm not young anymore, unfortunately. But we're hiring great folks, and we're really working to train them, understand who we are at Vaco, what we do, what we stand for, and hopefully catapult their career, right? Because I got into the same business when I was 25. So that's probably just kind of where we are at Vaco and where we're going, and I think we got a ton ahead of us. Personally, I'm probably most excited about my kids' age, and excited and also scared. My kids are 15, 13, and 10. And I look back, I vividly remember when I was 15, and it feels like yesterday. And so my kids are like leaving. So I'm excited about, I don't have toddlers anymore. We can do some cool trips together, and really trying to balance the work and home life for me. I coach my kid. I do more tennis now. The baseball, basketball. I do a little basketball, but it's mainly tennis. But it's crazy how kids get old quick, man.
Yeah, they do.
And so
then all of a sudden they start driving, and you get the insurance bill for a boy.
I've got one. I need to actually remind me. I need to call my insurance guy. My son just passed his permit test Friday, so I'm sure there's some insurance I need to take care of there.
I must say congratulations, but also too, I know the scare then that all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I know what my parents were going through.
Yeah. So, but I think that's exciting. But there's so much that your kid. I've got a daughter and 2 boys, and it's like, man, are they going to be equipped to like leave the nest? There's so many things to learn and teach and want to do with them, and so I'm try to be intentional with them as well.
Give me one thing that you've learned from your kids.
That's a good question. What have I learned from my kids?
Not being stuck to your phone all day.
Yeah, I do get on that for sure. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, but you try to balance the work and the personal so much, and we are stuck to our phones. And I will say, my son's not the best at this. My daughter's really good at just being in the moment, like being with her people.
Oh, that's good.
And she's probably taught me that, is put my phone down. My wife would laugh if she's listening to this right now. She's like, he hasn't mastered that by any means. But
I would say the same thing.
I think that's the hard part of like the personal life and the work, and then your clients are always trying to call you and things like that. And so I've gotten better, tried to at least not taking my phone and at certain places, and it can wait and that kind of thing. But my daughter's really good at that. So I hear it from her friends, parents. So
well, it's interesting. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on this because it ties in, I think, to a corporate environment, especially for hiring too. And so Andrew on our team, Bartolotta, he's our digital media director. He's sitting across. You can't see him obviously through the airwaves, but he's sitting here, and we produced some other podcasts for different groups and organizations, and he was doing one, and he didn't even realize he was checking. He's got an iWatch, and so he's sitting there checking while he's over there just kind of recording, making sure the audio is good. But he's checking his messages on his watch, and they weren't really paying attention to what he was doing. They just thought he was sitting there looking at the time and getting frustrated with them. And all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm just, looking at my text messages and emails that are coming through, making sure I'm up to date. And so, but it dawned on me, something as simple as that you might do automatically, all of a sudden from a communication standpoint creates a dissonance, right? And it's something that you're not even thinking about.
Well, it was the feedback I got is not being present, right? I'm like, present, really? And so if you see my phone, I don't either bring my phone to meetings or I turn it over. And so I've thought about getting an Apple Watch, because now I struggle. If I don't have my phone with me and I have back-to-back meetings in a row, then I'm like, I don't know where to go. And so they're like, well, print off your calendar. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's like, I can't win.
Can't win for losing.
Right? And so I'm like, why are you late? I'm like, I don't know where to go. And then they can't text or call me because I don't have my phone on me, right? So half the time it's with me, half if it's not. So trying to be, I'm doing the same thing right now. I've just gotten feedback of not being present. So trying to do 2 things at once, and people are like, he doesn't care right now. So then it goes back to that, right? So I know exactly where that's coming from.
Well, it's funny. I tried to join on a conference call even this morning, and you have to enter, this PIN number that's like 30 characters long, and I'm sitting there trying to flip back on my cell phone, and I'm just like, it took me. I'm late because I can't log all these numbers in. So it's the fun of technology. Thank you for listening to our ChangeMakers podcast. City Current is a catalyst of over 100 partners joining forces and funds to power the good through free events, positive media, and philanthropy. If you like our efforts and you're looking to power the good with us, follow us on social media at City Current and check out our website at citycurrent.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. And if you know a changemaker, please reach out and let us know so we can consider them for a future show. The ChangeMakers podcast is brought to you by DataFacts. DataFacts is a national provider of trusted background screening products such as criminal searches, drug screening, employment and education verifications, and post-hire monitoring to employers of all sizes. DataFacts is one of the few background screeners that holds the stringent National Association of Professional Background Screeners accreditation. They're certified by the WBENC as a 100% woman-owned business, and in 2018, they were ranked by HRO Today's Baker's Dozen customer satisfaction ratings as one of the top background screeners in the nation. You are in good hands with DataFacts. Visit datafacts.com to learn more and make sure to mention the ChangeMakers podcast. And now, back to the show. All right, so one last question, just because I think you served recently on a millennials panel, so we have to ask you something about millennials. But sure. Give us on your end, because obviously there's so much buzz and there's so many things, and not as much now I feel like than there was maybe a year or two ago. But millennials entering the workforce, and how they're going to be one of the largest segments. And now you've got all these different generations that are working together. Just give us one, either vantage point, trend, tip. I'll just kind of throw it up there as a softball for you, but related to millennials in the workplace, give us something that you think is important to know.
Well, I think millennials get a bad rap, right? And depending on where I fall in the millennial cutoff, I may be one. I don't think I am, but unfortunately, I'd love to be younger. But I think this is probably our best working group in general. I know the people that make fun of millennials, this is funny, the people that make fun of millennials and criticize millennials are the ones that raise them. So the real problem is the other way, right? And so they've coddled these folks to always win and accomplish the participation trophies and all that stuff. But I will say this without that group. If they know the why behind what they're doing and they understand kind of the cause and the direction and you give them the focus and the drive, like it's there. Right, I think they just have to understand what their purpose is and why they're there for a reason. And so at Vaco, we give them autonomy. Here's what you're doing. Here's a clear path. Our best producers are between the ages of 27 and 33, 35, whatever. Right? I mean, they're hungry. They're starting their career and they're going. And so, not saying we haven't had some people that haven't been that, but I love the millennials. Love them, and think that. Understanding their purpose and their why, because I think they're a very curious group, right? And they don't deal with a lot of BS. So transparency is really key for them. They don't like to be, they just like you to be straight up with them. Yeah. And they'll call me out on it if I'm not, or the perception is I'm not being that, right? And so sometimes I don't know if I don't know, but and trying to include them and get their thoughts and that. So, but I think the knock is, they don't want to do anything. They're lazy and. There can be some of that, but a lot of it deals with apathy about whatever that it's for. They don't deem as important or whatnot. So,
well, though, the establishment of the why on the front end to give them the purpose versus someone who's just basically coming in to collect a paycheck who doesn't really care about the why, who's just kind of robotically like, I'm just here because I need a paycheck. The difference is if you can harness the why and get them to buy in, then they're like the thoroughbred versus trying to, to lift up a horse that doesn't really want to go very fast.
Yeah. And
so
the why,
two very different sides.
And the why is important just in front of a leader, because I think some leaders are like, well, you're not in a position to know, or you shouldn't ask. Like, if we're doing something new, here's why we're doing this, right? Mm-hmm. And showing the breakdown of like, here's why we changed this process, or here's the new software we're using, and here's the reason being we've heard from you guys, or we've gotten some feedback, or just getting them open the curtain a little bit of decision making at the top, because the reality is it's lonely at the top. To be frank with you, because you're looked at a lot, and you're like, we need you to fix this and make this. And I think the more collaborative you can make it be, of like, hey, I don't want to make this decision. Like, we can change this. What do y'all want it to be? You want this wall to be red? We'll just paint it. I'm like, really? Right. And so I think there's an empowerment piece and all of that. But yeah. I love millennials.
Well, I mean, even to your point about lonely at the top, the older you get, I think, and I'm learning it myself too, is you have to guard that good positive energy, because to your point, in many cases, you're dealing with problems all day. So if you can't guard that energy, you can let that overflow and overtake your attitude in many cases. But to be the leader, to have a positive culture, you have to make sure that your energy is always kind of kept guard.
And I deal with a ton of problems every day, and I think it's how I approach it, right? I mean, not having talking emotionally never gets anywhere, but for us, assuming positive intent is really, really key. And so whenever I'm dealing with an issue, I'm like, oh, slow down. Like, do you really think they were trying to do that on purpose to you? Like, nobody comes to work trying to, screw somebody out of something. I just don't believe that. Like, we all, like, naturally deep down want to do the right thing. So I think just going in with that really level head, non-emotional conversation is really big. But yeah, that's completely agree with what you're saying.
See, so we've covered a lot of ground on that. So, all right, so let's switch over. We'll do a lightning round. This is just short questions, short answers, just kind of a fun way to kind of wrap things up. So, one, give me a favorite vacation spot.
Vacation spot. Sea Island, Georgia. Play golf there, probably. Pretty solid.
Give me one either favorite quote or bit of advice. It can be from your parents, favorite author.
Treat others as you want to be treated. Yep. My dad used to always tell me that, and to get to know that he goes, man, it doesn't matter if they're at the top or the bottom. We always everybody puts their pants on the same way. We're all a dad, we're all a mom, we're all a brother, we're all a sister. And so we're like outside the walls that you come to work in, there's no hierarchy, right? And so like don't bring hierarchy into the workplace. And so I understand there's a reporting structure, but like treating people the same, just personally.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What do you like to do to relax?
That's a great question. I need to do more of it. I love to play golf. So I played golf growing up, but I've picked it up the past 10 years, like pretty seriously. So that's probably, I do that. If I have any free time, I try to do that. My kids play some.
That is pretty cool. Like our youngest, that's one of my favorite things. Just whether it's Topgolf or just
Top
going out
Golf's
and playing,
super fun.
doing
Top
driving
Golf's
range.
great. I think Top Golf's been great for golf because I think it's let people like experience golf without going to a intimidating golf course. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, I can hit a ball. You know what I mean? And so I play with all types of levels of golfers. And like the biggest thing is like, if you're not good, just go out there and play and just pick up. Like, or go drop by somebody else and hit again and pick up, and like, don't keep your score. Like, just learning how to play and have fun. But it's a great, you go out there, and I mean, I like, being outdoors. And but for me, golf, I love my kids. I mean, I spend a ton of time with my kids, try to at least, and kind of what they're into. But man, I love just socially I got great neighbors, hanging out with them. We travel together some with them, and just, I'm pretty blessed. I have a bunch of groups of college friends, and a lot of people from Memphis that I went to college with. Strong social network. Yeah, try to. They always say your friend group evolves every 7 years with different people, and I look back and I'm like, man, it really does. You have your middle school, high school, and 7 years later it's college, and college kind of fades to, then your workplace and where your kids go to school and your neighbors is kind of that. And so I've been sure blessed on that front.
What's a favorite date spot for you and your wife?
Man, that's a great spot. So 2003, we were just talking. We came back from a trip out west with another couple just yesterday, and we always went to Cabana in Nashville, and still kicking. We love that. I love that fried chicken they had. It's like a boneless fried chicken. It's delicious. Now, probably I would say Rolf and Daughters or Moto are probably my two favorites in town. But there's so many restaurants in Nashville that you could go a year and not go to the same one.
Well, putting on kind of the tourism hat, what's one or two places that for those who either haven't been to Nashville or are coming soon, what's one or two things they need to do? Well,
I got introduced to this by my brother-in-law, Colby Paxton, told me for 6 months the best burger in town. I don't like these like, hey, it's the best pizza, best burger, best barbecue. Like I'll just try it all. Like I don't really. Emmy Squared has the best burger in town. It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. So there's one in the Gulch, Emmy Squared. There's one in Green Hills too. As far as what to do in Nashville, if you haven't experienced a Predators game, it's probably the best sporting entertainment there is in Nashville. The Preds have done a great job just engaging the community, and it's especially taking ice hockey to Nashville. Like, who would have thought 20 years ago that would have flown? But it has, and they do a fantastic job there. And then seeing a concert at the Ryman is pretty. There's a lot of really cool music venues. Everybody wants to go to the Bluebird. And it's a pretty tiny venue and tough to get tickets.
I was impressed though. City Winery, we saw
City Winery's cool. There's just so many.
Yeah, amazing.
Exit In and Mercy Lounge. And now I'm too old to go to a lot of these places, but they won't let me in. I think you have to be 35 and under. But obviously it's known for a ton of music. But
what's a favorite either TV show or movie?
Not a huge movie, but I get made fun of. My wife, she really likes movies, and I'm not a huge go to the movie kind of guy. But I was in Boston about a month ago with my kids and I've never been in one of the reclining chairs, and she's like, it's pretty nice, and I looked at her and I was like, 100% I'm going to fall asleep at some point in this movie. And I did.
So yours isn't the
Toy Story 4
favorite place to go.
Yeah, that's an expensive nap. So maybe I go a little more now. So favorite movie all time, it's probably a sports movie. It's either Hoosiers or Major League probably. Our buddies in college, Graham Cox, he's a Memphis guy, we would go. We watched it so much he gave us a test on it. It was like 50 questions.
Finish this line.
What was his batting average and what was the third base coach's name, and
that's hilarious.
So it was pretty awesome. We watched that a ton in college. TV show, I'm in the Americans right now. I'm in the middle of watching that. It's pretty messed up show, but KGB Russians and trying to defeat the Americans. But it's a good show. But I'm not a huge
That's
TV
a good
guy.
diversity to go from Hoosiers to
That's right. That's right. But I watch a lot of sports,
Yeah.
so I don't watch a ton of TV. Like I tell people I watch TV, but I'm like, if Wimbledon's on or big golf, watch a lot of golf. So,
Yeah.
But my wife wants me to watch more TV with her, and so we're in the middle of the Americans. That's kind of where.
Well, our thing is she turns it on either the Cooking Channel, Hallmark, or some like investigative show where somebody's been murdered and they're trying to figure it out. And so she'll turn that on at night. We'll have to watch that, and then after she goes to bed, I turn it on tennis or golf.
That's
and then
right.
She wakes up to that.
That's
So
right.
she's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Now my wife, she watches the cooking shows too. She's a fantastic cook. She bakes really well too. There's not much she can't do. So anytime she's watching that, or she'll get a recipe book or whatever the magazine is with all these recipes, and she's like, "What about this? I'm like, it looks good."
Yeah.
So she's good. She's a good one to have at home for sure. She's good with that.
So give me one thing that's on your bucket list that you want to accomplish.
Man, that is crazy. So I just got back from Pebble Beach yesterday. So that would be on there, which was fantastic. For my 40th, I'm going to Scotland. So they're all golf related. I think non-golf related.
So are you going there with a group? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just boys.
Yeah.
My wife's not invited. So I don't. As I told her,
Hey,
you're
St. Andrews is
you're welcome to come if you want to play golf for 10, 11 days.
Yeah.
And she does not like golf. But other bucket list, I don't know. I need to probably do more of that. It's all Scotland and playing more. Augusta Nationals on there. It's all golf related a lot for me. But then I think bucket list. This isn't really a bucket list, but it's something my wife and I are trying to do with our kids is create experiences instead of just buying them crap. And so we went to Italy. I have a buddy who lives in Switzerland, and stayed with him and kind of lived the local life for half the time. And then we traveled. He's in outside of Zurich.
Yeah,
Zug.
beautiful.
And so we went to south of France and Italy for 10 days. And my kids still talk about it, right? They forgot what they got for Christmas 3 years ago, but they remember that trip. Mm-hmm. And so I never traveled like that growing up. And the reality is you can kind of, from a means standpoint, you can kind of space out the cost. You buy your flights first. And it's not cheap, right? But we kind of do it in lieu of a lot of things. And so we're trying to do that every couple of years. So we're trying to plan that next one, what that looks like. So just give my kids experiences and let them see the world. And there's some, you kind of get caught in your bubble a little bit, right? And I think my wife's really tied into a nonprofit Respire down in Haiti. And so our kid's doing kind of a mission trip down there at some point. So a lot of cool.
And those are also cool ways to kind of force the hand of truly unplugging. So,
definitely.
All right, so last two questions. One is, you're creating your legacy, obviously, every single day, still going strong, long time to go. But what do you hope many years down the road your legacy is, especially with Vaco Nashville?
That's a really big question. I mean, I think I've said it before, but I think I really do. When people say if I leave and like they look back on my time here, that he cared. You know what I mean? I care about people's career paths. I care about seeing their success, the growth of this office, and with that comes obviously different types of discussions on kind of what do they want and encouraging them to really seek out what do they truly want to do, not what's in front of them. Because I think so many people are just like, well, this is the next thing to do. Like, really, is it really what you're wanting though? And what makes sense? And to get out and try new things. And if you're interested to learn more about this, and that's what I tell my kids too. And it's easier said than done when you're 15 than not. But I'm like, hey, if you want to go play the piano, like go play it. And so I think just inspiring and trying to encourage people to again, like hair. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The last question is, where do we go to learn more? So website, social media. I know you obviously, even on social media, you're a fun one to follow because you put out hilarious content. So where do we go to follow?
For me, Instagram is kind of where I live, and I haven't posted much in a while because I don't get paid to do that, and so my job is kind of consume that a little bit.
Well, you don't want to be on your phone all the time.
That's right, and so I'm going to start throwing a little more stuff out there. But I'm at Kyle M. Allen, but at Vaco Nashville, Vaco.com. I'm on Twitter, but I don't do much on Twitter if I need to. But I did some hilarious workout type videos, and I think we can get on this whole social media rant, but people put a perception of life of what's really their life's like, and the reality is it's just not like that. And I'm pretty lighthearted on there. I don't put a ton of look at me, but I like to make fun of people. And there's a couple things I had on my trip to Pebble Beach. I'm like, man, I should put this on there. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. So It's just some funny stuff. I probably should put it out there a little more, but I kind of chuckle in my head. But it's some good
you get
stuff.
to tease the audience.
That's right. So why not? And if I'm not teasing you if I don't like you. So I love calling people out, but it's fun.
Well, Kyle, greatly appreciate your time. You are a change maker. Thanks for all you do, for being on the show. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. To learn more about our guests and to share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com and follow us on social media using @citycurrent. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.